Good afternoon, everybody. We are going to start now. Deputy Minister of the Department of Science and Technology, Advocate Masuta, Professor Iron Rensberg, Vice Chancellor of the University of Johannesburg, Dr. Van Jaarsveld, CEO of the NRF, Professor Vilakazi, DVC from our junior partner, University of Witwatersrand. Earlier on, I was talking to Professor Vilakazi, and I introduced him as our partner, and he corrected me quite correctly that he is a junior partner in this relationship. Professor Nick Bukes, Director of CIMERA, which is the Center of Excellence, which we are going to launch today. Professor Kinnard, Co-Director of CIMERA from our partner at the University of Johannesburg. Ladies and gentlemen, I have seen quite a number of other distinguished guests from industry. I saw the CEO of the Chamber of Mines, and when the Chamber of Mines is here, then we know that everything is going to go well. I also acknowledge the University of Witwatersrand, who also are part of this Center of Excellence, the National Research Foundation, the Department of Science and Technology. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the University of Johannesburg today to the launch of the Center of Excellence in Integrated Mineral and Energy Resource Analysis. South Africa is one of those countries whose economies were built through minerals. Some of the most gold that have ever been mined was actually mined in South Africa, in fact in this city, the city of Johannesburg. The city of Johannesburg was built around the mining industry. So to us, it's not puzzling that the Center of Excellence in Integrated Mineral and Energy Resource Analysis would come to the city of Johannesburg in particular, in general, and to the University of Johannesburg in particular. South Africa as a developmental state obviously needs to diversify its economy, but we must have a point of departure that is going to give us a comparative advantage, economic advantage. And for me, I think the mineral and energy industry is that aspect of the economy that is going to give us the necessary comparative advantage to be able to diversify our industry, to beneficiate our minerals, and to become wealthier as a nation so that we are able to meet our social, economic, and political obligations as a country. Without much further ado, I am going to invite the Vice Chancellor of the University of Johannesburg, Professor Rensberg, to come and welcome you. Thank you.
Deputy Minister, I'm not one of those who will say all protocols observed. It's just not in my nature. And so apologies for taking you again through these very important protocols on this very special day. And so I greet the Deputy Minister of Science and Technology, Advocate Michael Masuta, as well as officials from the Department of Science and Technology who have been able to join us here this afternoon. The Chief Executive Officer of the National Research Foundation, the agency, the state agency that's responsible for this very important initiative, Dr. Albert van Jaarsveld and your colleagues from the NRF. It's also a great privilege for us to welcome you this morning. I know that the CEO of Mintech, Mr. Ngome Zulu, did signal that he would attend, but also colleagues from Mintech, the Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of Mines, Becky Sabia, welcome indeed, sir. I have to give a special welcome because the chairman of the University's Council on Human Resources is also the president of the Chamber of Mines. And so I've got to single out Mr. Beki Sibiya this morning in particular. But let me also recognize, as Professor Marwala has done, Professor Zeblon Vilakazi, Deputy Vice Chancellor at the University of the Witwatersrand. I always used to joke with a very good friend and former, or shall I say retired Vice Chancellor of the University of Witwatersrand. The joke when he leaves a message on my telephone would be, well, it's the Braamfontein campus director of the University of Johannesburg on the phone here. And I promised him that I'd recorded all of those, and I'd kept all of those observations. But the thing that I really enjoyed with Loyiso Nonga at the time was having to introduce him wherever I had to as the Vice Chancellor of the University of the Witwatersrand, Johannesburg. Of course, we know that the University of Witwatersrand is in Johannesburg, and so a warm welcome to you, Zeblon, and to your colleagues. Of course, notably, most importantly, Professor Judith Kinnard, the co-director of the center that we launch this afternoon. Let me also then acknowledge Professor Marwala, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Research at the University of Johannesburg, as well as colleagues from the University of Johannesburg, most notably Professor Nick Bekus, the director of the center that we are launching today. But it's also a special privilege to welcome our colleagues from our peer and partner institutions, Stellenbosch, Venda, Rhodes, Fort Hare, and Pretoria. And so you can see seven universities and their institutes, various institutes, form the essential foundation and the collaborating network for this very important center that we launch here today. And so let me also recognize our colleagues and our many friends from the minerals and the energy and the exploration industries who have joined us here this morning. We do not take your presence for granted. It's a very special privilege to welcome you here to the University of Johannesburg. And then, of course, our many colleagues, I notice amongst others from the Industrial Development Corporation, friends from the media, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Sanibonani. Tobela. Goeiemiddag, dames en heren. And so it gives me great joy to extend a most warm welcome to the University of Johannesburg. I noticed and I observed as many of you were walking through that there was a wind blowing, but of course it was not yesterday's cold. It's much warmer today. And so a warm welcome here to the University of Johannesburg. It's a real great joy for me to be able to welcome you as we inaugurate the National Research Foundation Center of Excellence in integrated mineral and energy resource analysis. And so the launch of the Center of Excellence this afternoon continues, in my view, the South African trajectory of making significant investments in our research areas of comparative advantage. And it is part of a global research push that has seen global research collaboration spend doubling in the last 15 years. Let me repeat that. Global research push that has seen global research collaboration spend doubling in the last 15 years to close to $4 trillion, with global and domestic spend punctuated by the significant investments in CERN. This is the initiative of the European Organization for Nuclear Research. And of course, most notably for us here in South Africa, the SKA, square kilometer array. And so the national investments in the 5 new centers of excellence must sustain the momentum of the last decade that has seen South African research output double and our own international collaboration triple, and which has established South Africa as the most prolific and leading African research hub. And so our national investment in the Center of Excellence in Integrated Mineral and Resource Analysis is correct for at least 2 reasons. Our global research output in the geosciences is prolific and represents a major comparative advantage for South Africa and for our continent, while our minerals resource is amongst the best and the most diverse. And so in collaboration with 37 established researchers at UJ, at WITS, at Stellenbosch, at Rhodes, at Fort Hare, and at Venda, this Center of Excellence seeks to understand the origin and distribution of our vast reserves in minerals and in fossil fuels, and of course how best and how sustainably we can employ these, while training at the same time highly qualified economic geologists through undertaking research, so in practice, and in the process nurturing numerous master, doctoral, and postdoctoral research projects. So please accept my warm welcome, and may this launch be inspiring and challenging as we consider the remarks and presentations from our colleagues and friends, and of course from our Deputy Minister. I thank you. Yabonga. Bye. Danki.
Thank you very much for those remarks. I'm going to invite the Chief Executive Officer of the National Research Foundation, Dr. Van Jaarsveld, to come and address us.
Thank you very much. From my side, first of all, Deputy Minister Masuta, it's always a pleasure to see you at these wonderful celebratory occasions, and of course we're delighted that we're here today at the University of Johannesburg together with our host, Professor Rensburg, and everybody else, our colleagues in research from the National Research Foundation side. I'd like to say that this is really a wonderful occasion, a wonderful venue, a beautiful day. We really couldn't ask for any more. I want to just first of all just remind people that, as Professor Rensburg clearly stated, that we are in a process of making a large suite of strategic investments into our national science system over time. And we've been driving this together with the colleagues at the Department of Science and Technology for a considerable period of time. And I think you're starting to see the traction or the results of those investments are starting to bear fruit across institutions, but also at the national level. We do invest in research chairs, as you know, and we continue to grow those. The centers of excellence and our national research facilities, all of those that are considered to be critical platforms that we require to drive our system into the future. We will make those investments in areas that we consider to be of national strategic importance for ourselves. And the objective, of course, is to grow a well-defined global competitiveness in those particular areas, to grow a critical mass of expertise that can lead our science endeavors in those particular areas of work. And it's particularly important that we encourage the broad participation from actors across the system in these initiatives. And we're particularly delighted about this particular initiative, which already has the 2 nodes brought together from the University of Johannesburg and the University of the Witwatersrand, and of course the colleagues from the other participating institutions. This is precisely what we're trying to do with this instrument, is to break down institutional barriers and make sure that people collaborate across the landscape, where we bring strength together with strength and make sure that we truly can compete on the global stage. Now, not many people know that Centers of Excellence is not just a handing over of money exercise. We at the NRF and the DST actually engage with these centers, and we sign a performance agreement with them about what they're supposed to do in terms of delivering the human capital we require in those particular areas, the research papers and the impact of those papers, and even the journals that they're supposed to target, to make sure that the impact is really of the highest possible order. Now, we'll continue to have these conversations with the colleagues in the new Centre of Excellence, and we look forward to those. But truly, I can report to you, as was emphasized in the recent review of the established centres of excellence, that every one of the centres that we've established have managed to reach those milestones and up their game to a level where they're truly making an international and a global impact. Of course, when you put together a group of researchers such as this that already have a strong profile, that have an established research track record, that's so much easier to reach those particular milestones that we'll be discussing with them. But we want you to take it to the next level, and that's the challenge from the National Research Foundation and the DST side to this group of scientists. Now, collaboration across institutions is very important. We have to create opportunities for students to move across institutions, and we know that this particular Centre of Excellence is going to achieve that in a manner that will truly benefit the career development of these young people in our system. I want to just first of all say that when awarding these Centres of Excellence, they go through a very rigorous peer review system that's run by the National Research Foundation. And I want to emphasize that the results or the outcomes of these peer review processes are implemented directly. Nobody at the National Research Foundation or at the Department of Science and Technology, and particularly not the Minister or the Deputy Minister or anybody of one of the officials or on our side, manipulate or influence the outcomes of these peer review processes. If institutions succeed in this peer review process, it is done so on merit, on the quality of the proposal that they submitted, and the impact that that proposal had with the peer review community that engaged with that particular proposal. So on that note, I would like to extend my congratulations to the University of Johannesburg. Obviously, the proposal hit the right notes and made the right noises. The reviewers were excited about it. And of course, I'd like to congratulate their partner in this venture, University of Witwatersrand, for succeeding in this particular application. We look forward to engaging with you, and we look forward to seeing the very important work that's going to emerge from the centre into the future. Thank you very much.
I would like to invite the director of the Centre of Excellence to come and outline for us the objectives of the centre. Professor Bukes.
It's sometimes a little bit short, so these things don't work, so I'll try to sometimes, right? Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. So I would like to, first of all, just thank Dr. Viersveld for telling us that we actually have a big job ahead of us. And it's not, you know, it's going to be a tough one. But having said that, I can probably try to start the next slide here. Let's see, what did I do? So I would like to tell you a little bit about the Centre of Excellence and what it's all about. And let me see if I can work this stuff here. Okay. Now what was CIMERA built on? I think CIMERA was built on the foundation of two world-class, in my own opinion, and I think we all agree with that, research centres or units in South Africa that has done research in the past on economic geology and geology in South Africa. And that is the PPM research unit here at UJ, and then EGRI, the economic geology research unit at WITS. WITS has had 50 years more experience than us on this, but I think in the last 20 years or so, since we formed this PPM research centre, we've done not too badly in the sense of studying iron and manganese ore deposits in the world. And WITS is a big strength in things like the Bushveld complex, platinum, etc., etc. But there's also other units involved, and the CIMERA, in other words, is also involves University of Rhodes, Stellenbosch, University of Fort Hare, University of Pretoria, and University of Venda, because of specific expertise that are available at these universities. For example, Venda, we incorporated because of their expertise in environmental geology. Larry Alteman there, sitting over there, for their work on carbon capture and things like that, and also work on iron and manganese ores in the world. And then Stellenbosch University, because of the very excellent analytical facilities they have available. We have Gary Stevens here and Dirk Fry over there. I think they're just fantastic facilities down at Stellenbosch to help us. And then there's also the University of Fort Hare. They do a lot of work on coal, for example, coal deposits in South Africa. And then the Rhodes University do a lot of work nowadays by Harry Chickles and these guys on iron and also manganese, and then also on Annette Geert sitting over there, working a lot with oil and gas exploration and things like that. Okay, and then from the Wits side, a lot of expertise that comes in, especially in geophysics. The only geophysics department in this country is actually at Wits, and we need that sort of expertise if we want to do research on economic geology deposits. Okay. Now, the focus of CIMERA, the main focus, I think, is to train skilled economic geologists through undertaking postgraduate research studies on mineral and energy resources in South Africa. Now, that makes us different to the economic geology units that's, for example, present at the Council of Geoscience or at MINTEC or these other governmental institutes. They do applied research or applied projects. What we have to do basic research, but we do it through training students. In other words, it's through students. That to me is a university. A university can't just do research. It has to train students, and you do your research through your students. And then you train people. You know, that's what you want to do. So I think that's the big difference between this center and other centers of economic geology, for example, in South Africa. I hope that's clear. Now, the relevance of this research in South Africa is the following. It's very simple. I think, and Judith coined that phrase for me, South Africa represents the most valuable piece of mineral real estate in the world. There is no other piece in the world that has that value. And I think that's important. And we have to, in other words, look after our minerals, resources, and use it properly. Okay? And so we are ranking top in the resource concentrations of all those minerals there. Platinum, gold, chromium, manganese, all those elements. And also we have important world-class deposits in iron, uranium, diamonds, and coal. I can keep on, there's maybe a few that I missed out on. But this is why we need a center like this. Okay? And but CIMERA, CIMERA, I don't know how to pronounce this. I also believe that the African continent is moving into a new era. When I travel up sometimes, I see that Africa is now moving into bulk commodities. They're coming out of diamonds and gold, which you carry in your pocket and go and sell it. But to move big deposits of manganese, or big deposits of iron and bauxite, you need infrastructure and transport systems. But Africa is moving into that, but we know about many of these deposits very little. And I think there's big scope here for us in future to look at these deposits as well and to try and better understand them. Okay. Okay, so the CIMERA goal, the real goal we have then, is to serve as a central hub for mineral and fossil fuel resource research in South Africa, but more importantly, for human capital development. In other words, that we would train economic geologists, not only for South Africa, but for Africa as a whole. And I think it's not too far-fetched to say that we would like to be that central hub, and we can be that, I think. People tell me sometimes like, we're looking too broad, or we are too over-ambitious. I say I'd rather be over-ambitious than under-ambitious. Okay, so let's try and do what we want to do. Now, what do I mean by integrated mineral resource studies? I think we need in this country something where we integrate all aspects of mineral resource studies. We would like to know, first of all, how did these minerals form, the genesis of these deposits. Then we would like to know something about how to explore and how to mine them. We want something to how do we extract the minerals, that's geometallurgy. We need to know the mineral economics and what affects that, and there's also environmental geology. Well, we can't do all of that, but we certainly can do, maybe on this side, all of them virtually, up to environmental geology. We can have an impact on that. The thing that I think should really become part of a centre like this, or somewhere in South Africa, is also something where a place where people actually integrate also the mineral and mining legislation, see how that should be planned, but also the social and economic impacts or implications of mining. People should be more informed about the importance of mining in South Africa, and then you won't probably have less of uninformed, I shouldn't say this, uninformed strikes and things like that. But yeah, keep that. Yeah. So in our proposal, we have suggested about 8 research focus areas. And we thought that initially, we are still at the moment, we already are working a lot on things like, for example, early earth mineralization processes, like in the Barberton Mountainland and things like that. We will keep on and build on that strength. We also have big strength in studying some of our super large deposits in South Africa, like the Witwatersrand gold, the Northern Cape iron and manganese deposits, and also all the elements related to the Bushveld complex. We are also pretty well equipped for research in fossil energy sources like coal characterization and methane gas and uranium. But things that I think needs to be addressed more fully in future is how can we as researchers contribute to the development of small-scale mining opportunities in South Africa. There's a lot of people that wants to do small-scale mining, but they don't know their deposits. So they work, and then a few years later they bankrupt because they never understood their deposit. Maybe you understand what you know. So I think that's an important aspect that we can also try and do within this unit in future. Then there's also another important feature are the critical metals for the future. We at the moment have very little expertise in that, but I think in the next years or so we should really try to develop studies on things like rare earth elements, tellurium, molybdenum and things like that, that's used in a modern industry, making new batteries, electronics, etc., etc. And then the new mineral bulk resources development in Africa. I think it's important that we start working again and more, especially researching the iron, manganese, aluminum ores. And then also we have to start looking at the environmental geology for the problem of solving environmental problems rather than saying you can't do this because there's an environmental problem. Okay? Rather solve the problem and then work with that. You want to try to understand what I'm saying. And the same applies to carbon dioxide capture and storage. I mean, that's solving a problem. And we can focus research on that as well. And then something where we will have, I think, if I have to go ahead with this thing, that we will have a special little unit where we try to prepare pamphlets and things about the importance of mining in South Africa and why we require a proper mining industry in South Africa. So that would be our 8 focus areas. In there, we can't do all at once, but we will develop into some of that. Okay, so the scientific goal of CIMERA is actually to maintain a leading position in the world on researching the origin, distribution of major mineral and energy resource deposits and their optimum utilization. So the main focus, I cannot overemphasize that, is the research, high quality research and training of students, thus remains the main objective of CIMERA, CIMERA, whatever. Okay, but that's what I have to say. I hope that was clear enough. And so I'll put the last slide on. Thank you for your attention. And then finally, I'll just leave that slide on for you to look at again.
Thank you very much. I am going to ask for just 3 questions for clarification for Professor Lucas. Any questions? Comments?
There is no, maybe? Nick, could you tell us just briefly about the industrial role in CIMERA or CIMERA, if there is any? The industry.
Vladi Altroman from UP. Nick, could you tell us briefly about the role of the industry in that, if there is any, and what?
Okay, I think I know what you're asking, but tell me if I don't. The important thing for geology nowadays, if we want to do geological research in South Africa, we have looked at all the stuff on surface. We've mapped it out in many cases and so on and so on. We are, in a certain degree, totally dependent on our mining and energy industry to obtain material to work on. Okay. So we have to be able to go underground, for example, in mines. We have to be able to work with drill core that the exploration companies produce. Without that, we cannot work anymore in South Africa because everything is now going deeper and we need more sophisticated material to work from. And so I think it's essential that we will have to establish very good working relationships with our mining and energy resource industry. And that's why I think it's actually important that we have quite a number of people here from that industry, because I think that is, we are totally dependent on that. But hopefully we will do research in such a way that will also be beneficial to them. In other words, that they would be able to use some of research results for that. And the biggest struggle in South Africa now, in many cases, is that there's sometimes a lot of confidentiality involved. And the trick is that one also has to work on projects where that confidentiality things can be broken down a little bit so we can work wider with several mining companies in a specific area. And I have quite a bit of experience in the iron and manganese ore industry in the Northern Cape. And if you do good work and the work is of value, people are prepared to allow you to work on their deposits and to make use of some of their facilities, and also maybe you can also create extra funding from that system. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, thanks.
It will further check Africa.com. Previously you mentioned uranium, of course, on a sort of second level in South Africa, but hugely important in Africa. Within which strategic framework are you addressing the questions of uranium enrichment and the energy component of uranium, nuclear energy, and the future? Is there a strategic framework that informs your work here, or are you a bit more disengaged from the current plans of various African states to invest in uranium enrichment and energy extraction from there?
Yeah. You know, I think, if I understand your question correctly, I think what we will do when I mean uranium, there are probably quite a bit of very big uranium deposits still around, and you know, and what are their compositions? How do you extract these uranium deposits, etc., etc. I think that would be my focus, you know, in this field. I don't think we'll go into the, how do you say, the upgrading, the enrichment factor of that.
Okay. One last question?
Nick, can I just ask, with the accent on oil and gas in Africa, which is developing pretty fast, do you have plans to train petroleum geologists and to get into the whole field of petroleum and gas and other energy sources?
Richard, when we talked about all of this, and when I see the development taking place, for example, that's going to take place, for example, at the University of Pretoria, when I look at what Fort Hare is trying to do in some of their research, I certainly see that we are going to start training petroleum geologists in future as well. Because, you know, we had a very good petroleum industry in the past, and I think we've lost all that whole that whole generation of petroleum geologists to a large degree. I know of very few petroleum geologists nowadays are very active. There may be some with Petro SA and so on. But there's a lot of new moves in South Africa to train those type of people, because they are not only important in the exploration of petroleum and things like that, but they're also totally important for understanding, for example, the production of methane from organic carbon in sediments and things like that. They are also extremely important, for example, for carbon storage and capture. It all has to do with the porosity of rocks, the amount of organic carbon in the rocks, etc., etc. And all of these things, they use exactly the same principles. And you know that even in the study of just the Karoo Basin, or even the Witwatersrand Basin, by using all these techniques that have been used by, that has been developed by the petroleum industry, like downhole geophysical logging and all those things, we have to have people trained in that. And I know a little bit about that. But there's very few students in our community that I know of that can really read some of these things sometimes. And I think there's a big scope of training people in that. And also there's as you know, there's big developments in Africa, for example, as such, in the coal industry. I was recently up in Stanford, and these guys there do a lot of work. For example, for the oil exploration guys up in the on the delta of the Congo Delta and things like that, etc. And why are we not involved there?
Thank you very much, Professor Bucas. I'm going to invite the Deputy Minister to come and give us a keynote address.
Before I proceed, for the curious mind, my speech is in Braille, which is my most convenient mode of reading, being partially sighted. And for the more curious mind, I'd be more than willing to teach anybody Braille after my speech. It doesn't take longer than 10 minutes, actually, to learn the alphabet in Braille. Actually, all languages of the world, anything that can be written can also be reduced to Braille. And I think thanks to Louis Braille in the 1600s, who discovered this wonderful tool that enables blind and partially sighted people like me to participate on the same platform as others. But Program Director, Professor Chilidzi Marwala, my dear comrade, Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research at the University of Johannesburg, UJ's Vice Chancellor and Principal Professor Aaron Rensbeck, Chief Executive Officer of the National Research Foundation, Dr. Albert van Jaarsveld, whose several encounters I've come to enjoy, Director of Center of Excellence in Integrated Mineral and Energy Resource Analysis, Professor Nick Bucas, and thank you for the wonderful presentation you've just given us. Co-Director of CIMERA, or CIMERA, whichever you prefer, and President of the Society of Economic Geologists, Professor Judith Kinnert. And of course, let me not, even though it's not mentioned here in my notes, forget the goose that lays the golden egg, suppose representing the mining industry, Mr. Becky Sibia, CEO of the Chamber of Mines, researchers, students, and representatives of the COE partner institutions, representatives of the NRF and the DST, members of the media, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen. Before I proceed, allow me firstly to perform a ritual. I know I'm addressing scientists, but despite this wonderful induction to science that I've enjoyed for the last 10 months, I still believe in God, and I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to the high hand for the privilege I've had to work with such a wonderful partner in the form of Minister Derek Honeycomb. And on that note, in particular, thank the President in his wisdom, deemed it fit to invite me to join his executive and to serve in this portfolio, which has exposed me to very exciting things and very exciting people, such as yourself, Prof. And actually to also mention that last night I joined the President together with a few ministers and deputy ministers in an interaction with the Afrikaans community at, guess where, Voortrekkerhoogte. It was an ANC campaigning trail. But it also offered me an opportunity in responding to a question about what we're doing to improve the quality of our education system in South Africa, to allude, amongst other things and interventions, that from DST we are pursuing in partnership with basic education and higher education, to also allude to this very important launches that we're doing this week. One we did on Tuesday at Wits, and this one that we're doing today, and to highlight the significance of promoting the notion of shifting from a resource-based to a knowledge-based economy through developing this kind of capabilities. And I hope that I have, in so doing, represented yourselves as a sector well, I hope. Well, I am delighted to be here today at the launch of the new Department of Science and Technology National Research Foundation Center of Excellence in Integrated Mineral and Energy Resource Analysis, called CIMERA, hosted by the University of Johannesburg in collaboration with the University of the Witwatersrand. CIMERA is built on the foundation of two world-class economic geology research units in South Africa. The Paleoproterozoic Mineralization Research Center at UJ and the Economic Geology Research Institute at Wits. Both these universities are located in South Africa, call them sister universities or neighboring universities, South Africa's economic and industrial hub. And I think that the collaboration between these two institutions in the strategic area of mineral and energy resources, the primary drivers of our economy, is going to be very fruitful. The concept of the Centers of Excellence derives from the National Research and Development Strategy of 2002 that were adopted as a country. The NRDS identified the need to create centers and networks of excellence in science and technology, including in the social sciences as a key component of the human capital and transformation dimensions of government policy. This notion which was re-emphasized in the 10-year innovation plan of 2008, is aimed at driving innovation and the building of a knowledge economy in South Africa. It was envisaged that COEs will emulate sustained distinction in research while simultaneously generating highly qualified human resource capacity in order to impact meaningfully on key national and global areas of knowledge. According to a 2008 midterm review of the COEs, these facilities have performed satisfactorily since inception in 2008 in meeting their mandates in the 5 key performance areas of research, students training, networking, service rendering, and knowledge brokerage. They have succeeded in retaining high-level research expertise in the country whilst building a new cadre of young researchers and have demonstrated an upward trajectory in the impact of research papers that are published and are succeeding in leveraging government research funds with funds from other sources. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you are also fully aware that this is the public launch of the 5th Center of Excellence in this month of April 2014. This includes the CO in mathematics and statistical sciences, the COE in human development, the COE in scientometrics and science, technology and innovation policy, and the COE in food security. Considering this launch today, there is probably no industrial activity closer to the economic psyche of South Africans than mining. Our country is blessed with a wealth of mineral resources, and mining in South Africa has been the driving force in the development of Africa's biggest economy since the late 1800s. And I know that the Nigerians have laid claim to this #1 spot, but there's been a lot of commentary on that, which I'll not go into. When diamonds were discovered on the banks of the Orange River and gold on the Witwatersrand. While diamond and gold mining are no longer at their peak, as the Prof has reminded us, South Africa remains a cornucopia, what is that, of mineral riches. In 2009, the country's diamond industry was still the 4th largest in the world. South Africa is the world's largest producer of chrome, manganese, platinum, vanadium, and vermiculite. I wonder what that is. The 2nd largest producer of ilmenite, palladium, rutile, and zirconium, and the world's 3rd largest coal exporter. The country is also a huge producer of iron ore, overtaking India in 2012 to become the world's 3rd. Pardon me. To become the world's 3rd biggest iron ore supplier to China, which is the world's largest consumer of iron ore. The list goes on. There is considerable potential for the discovery of other world-class deposits in areas yet to be exhaustively explored. So, and of course, the Prof reminded us that we are one piece of a state which is probably the richest in this regard. South Africa's prolific mineral reserves include precious metals and minerals, energy minerals, non-ferrous metals and minerals, ferrous minerals, and industrial minerals. There are also huge possibilities for shale gas exploitation, which has been talked of quite a bit lately, and other potential sources of energy minerals. Given South Africa's history and mineral wealth, it is no surprise that our mining companies are key players in the global industry. We have a high level of technical and production expertise and comprehensive research and development activities and capacities. We have world-class primary processing facilities for carbon, steel, stainless steel, aluminium, gold, and platinum. South Africa is also a world leader in some new technologies, such as the groundbreaking process that converts low-grade superfine iron ore into high-quality iron units. However, we face many challenges. The integrated analysis that CIMERA will be doing is especially relevant to South Africa because our country is one of the most valuable pieces of mineral real estate, as was mentioned, in the world, ranking top in resource concentrations of gold, platinum, group elements, chromium, manganese, fluorite, aluminium silicates, vanadium, and zirconium, in addition to hosting significant deposits of iron, uranium, diamonds, and coal. The COE will not only help expand research and training of high-quality economic geologists, but will also serve to expand collaboration with private mining and energy companies in South Africa. We can't do without the private sector. This is clear when you consider the good response from the mining and energy companies that we have invited to witness this day on this auspicious occasion. While going through the proposal submitted by this center to the NRF, one is struck by their statement that the COE will construct a strategic research program that in 5 years will be able to provide answers to specific and pertinent scientific questions that will benefit South Africa most in terms of international scientific esteem, application in wealth generation through resource extraction and beneficiation, increased human capital supply, and raising of research standards, and will impact to the highest possible levels through facilitating interdisciplinary collaboration between outstanding scientists in the field as well as other role players. The statement got one's attention because although our point of departure is South Africa's natural resources, the statement shows the COE contributing in terms of knowledge economy, increasing human capital supply, raising research standards, and generating wealth through resource extraction and beneficiation. From a human capital supply point of view, it is important that our centers of excellence attract a representative cohort of South African researchers. I challenge CIMERA to lead by example in this regard. And I'd like to emphasize that our science system will always remain the poorer if we do not address the underlying legacy of inequality in South Africa, which has culminated in the uneven representation of demographics in our science system and research community. This is particularly important because the mining industry has for so long been seen as an industry that exploits black workers. In fact, most of the back-breaking jobs on the mines are still done by black men, and most of the mid and top level jobs are held by white men. I may want to share that I was particularly impressed in the last 4 years that I've worked with the institution of the Auditor General as chair of the Committee of Parliament on the Auditor General, how under the leadership of the outgoing Auditor General, there has been a significant shift in the face of an auditor in South Africa, from that of, pardon me, distinguished guests in the House, a face that historically was known as typically white, grey-haired male, to a face of a young, beautiful African walking into your office and announcing themselves as the auditor who's come to inspect your books. I think that kind of transformation is possible, and we have to take the lead in making sure that we rid ourselves of the undesirable legacy of inequality, racial inequality and gender inequality in this country by making sure that we expose young black people, young women in this country to some of these high-end skills, such as is the focus of today. Encouraging black people and women to enter research careers in this area would be a good start towards a more equitable situation. With a growing proportion of students from other African countries in our postgraduate cohorts, and with the Johannesburg University of Johannesburg considered the hub for resource development on the continent, CIMERA would be incomplete without some focus on the rest of Africa. Apart from building on existing research in kimberlites and diamonds, the Zambian copper belt and Namibian uranium, CIMERA can do research on Africa's bulk resource potential, that is iron, manganese, and bauxite, and the Ganzi base metal sulfide deposits of central Botswana and Namibia. There is currently high economic interest in these deposits, which remain largely unstudied and provide unique opportunities for research. Whilst COEs are primarily instruments for human capital development and basic research in integrated mineral and energy resources has huge downstream benefit. I hope CIMERA will keep an eye open for opportunities that might improve the socio-economic conditions for our people, such as the development of enterprises in the mining sector, for example. I wish the new Center of Excellence well in its innovative research plans. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister. I'm going to invite Professor Judith Kinnard to give a vote of thanks.
Okay, I'm delighted to be able to offer a vote of thanks to everyone here today. I'm not sure I need the microphone. I'm used to shouting at students, so. I'd like to acknowledge the University of Johannesburg for submitting the original proposal, and to Nick Bucas for having the vision to accept our joint proposal. So thanks to UJ and its representatives today, even if Prof. Mawala did assign me to UJ rather than to WITS. I'd like to offer my thanks to the DST and the NRF for giving this opportunity to Gauteng universities to create a centre of excellence. We are, after all, standing in a city whose very existence owes its origins back to 1886, when gold began to be mined here in one of those early gold rushes. So it's fitting that this city should host the first centre of excellence for minerals and energy. just after the announcement of this award back in February, I had the opportunity as president of the International Society for Economic Geologists to travel very widely to the UK, the USA, Canada, and Japan. And at various meetings there, I met many international geologists from a number of countries, and especially the Australians were amazed, delighted, and very impressed to hear that the South African government was investing in minerals and energy research at a time when many other governments are cutting back or even axing research programs in this sector. So thank you to the DST and the NRF for your vision, and to Prof. Rensburg also for his welcome, and to say thank you to the DST and NRF for your commitment and vision. I'd like to acknowledge the Deputy Minister of Science and Technology, Mr. Masuta, for being with us today to underwrite the importance of this centre, and for also broadcasting this information to the people that he's met yesterday, and to create a sort of a wider audience of what we're doing. And I certainly wouldn't expect very many people who are not geologists to be able to read Paleoproterozoic, I can't even get it right myself, let alone read it in Braille. And I would like to say I'm also trying to address the gender imbalance. As everybody has stressed, Africa is blessed with a wealth of mineral and energy deposits, and that has been stressed today. And it's also been stressed that we need to use them responsibly, and we need to educate the next generation in all aspects of their formation. And we can do this through the COE, but we also contribute, all of us individually, at mines that we visit as part of our research. And through the COE, we can contribute more with partnership with mines. I was in the Congo supervising a student in the copper belt last week, and we will have greater capacity going forward to create more educational partnerships with the mines too. Whilst it can be argued that mining and energy extraction are bad for the environment, most of us have driven here today, most of us have got cell phones in our pockets, and that's just part of our daily lives. And we require these metals and energy to manufacture goods in our everyday lives. What we need to do is to make sure that in developing mines and extracting energy, that we do so in a responsible manner. But it is an interesting fact to note that for all the adverse comments about mining, there is a greater footprint of roads and car parks on our continent than there are of the footprints of mines and quarries. And that is a very important thing to remember. So, as we go forward, we do realize that there's a huge responsibility, and that there are a lot of hurdles that we'll have to face, decisions we'll have to make, and we can develop, through CIMERA, a capacity for social and scientific development and create opportunities. I'm sure that CIMERA can make a valuable national and international contribution. And Nick, thanks for your comments today, and I look forward to working with you and all our partners here in our universities and industry. We can create a dynamic and vibrant centre of excellence of recognised international standing. I really do genuinely believe that we can make a global impact. Perhaps our first decision, Nick, is to actually how to decide on the pronunciation of our title. So thank you all for being here today, and we look forward to working in an integrated partnership. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This brings to the end this occasion. I would like to invite you to join us on the other side where you were before you came here for refreshment so that we can show you what the University of Johannesburg has to offer. Thank you very much.